Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And in this one, we're going to be going over the Fury specialization for Shadowlands. The main purpose of this channel at the moment is generating reviews for every specialization in the game, taking into account all aspects of play, dungeons, raids, PvP, rated PvP content, and Mythic Plus, giving my opinion on it. A little bit less focused on performance because we're still pretty far away from the tuning phase, and even after it releases, I feel like there's a good chance that whatever ends up being the best gets nerfed heavily. So to me, the most important factor is going to be fun, and my definition for fun is how engaged am I when I'm playing the specialization? Am I falling asleep? Is it going to keep me entertained over a long period of time? So like, can I play Fury Warrior for 3 months and still have fun at the end of the 3 months and feel like I want to continue playing Fury Warrior? Because Shadowlands is going to be quite an investment in terms of your character power with Covenants. So that, take it from that angle more than anything. So starting things off for Fury Warrior, similarly to ARMS, you're getting a lot of your utility back, which is going to be a lot of fun in PvP. In PvE, you're probably just never going to press the buttons unless you want to be really creative or your healer sucks. You get Intervene, so you can charge to an ally and redirect all melee and ranged attacks against them to yourself. So like when I was saying, if your healer is bad, you could just intervene to your tank, maybe pop Enrage regen, heal through some damage while they're dealing with something, or drop some necrotic stacks off. I think people need to try and be a little bit more creative than me do damage when it comes to Mythic Plus, but this will have a lot of use in PvP, obviously, just getting away from the fight or intervening important physical abilities at a key moment. It was probably the highest skill capability in the game, and some conduits that I'll be going over in the future in this video will improve this ability and make it even more of kind of a skill-oriented spell. Shattering Throw is coming back, which is an excellent addition to Warrior in general. One of the main reasons Fury Warrior and Arms Warrior have been falling behind in PvP, speaking about PvP specifically, is they used to have this, which allowed them to delete Ice Block and delete Divine Shield and remove Blessing of Protection from targets. When they got that removed, along with Hunter's ability to remove magic effects, which was returned to Hunters, you saw the Warrior Hunter synergy fall behind because they couldn't get through those big powerful cooldowns in PvP. So with this coming back, it opens up more composition options for the Fury Warrior in PvP. In PvE, it's got the added benefit that if you use it on a target with an absorb effect, you'll get 500% damage. This would also be in PvP against Discipline Priests, with Rapture Power Word Shields being massive, other absorb effects as well. So you'll not only be using this to just kind of chunk off an ice block, you could use it to try and beef up your damage for a moment in time. And there are new honor talents that will synergize really effectively with it if that's the case, like Demolition, reducing the cooldown by 2 minutes. So you could utilize it on every Rapture against a Discipline Priest, for example. And then in PvE, you're going to really want to pay attention to the dungeon boss journal to see if the boss will cast an Absorb Shield on themselves. I mean, I'm thinking about the Absorb Shield just in the Visions of Orgrimmar, that one dude that will cast a shield, and then if he finishes the channel, drains some sanity. You could beef up your damage during that time and cut through the shield much faster. So it will have use in PvE, but I'm also more grateful that it's back for PvP. I kind of ignored it here, and I didn't mean to. Ignore pain, so you get a little bit of a shield. It's a nice addition, but it's a lot of rage, especially for Fury, which relies so heavily on just constantly cycling through rampages. So at an 80 rage cost, that's pretty steep. This would likely only be if you absolutely needed to do it, and it's not going to be the biggest benefit, but it is a little bit more of a defensive skill cap. Because to me, throughout my time playing Fury Warrior, more in Warlords of Draenor and Legion, and a little bit less in BFA, I miss Odin's Fury. It feels smooth. Like the spec feels awesome. If you like those kind of like button masher dungeon grinders, like this spec comes together really well. It's kind of simple in that sense, so it might eventually start to become tedious, repeating through the same action of generating rage and then spamming through rampage. One of my personal things for feedback for this spec is that when you cast Whirlwind, it causes your next 2 single target abilities to AoE. I would really like if the buff here in the top, you see Whirlwind, appeared here next to where sudden death procs and next to where your enrage procs. Because when my eyes have to travel all the way up here and sort through 20 buffs and then go back down here to try and see if I'm enraged, it was just really cumbersome to do it. I feel like this debuff is pretty much core to the class, that it justifies coming down here on the center action bar. That's more or less a minor point of feedback from my time just attacking the training dummy and trying to feel things out. Shield block and shield slam come back. Now, depending on if they are going to allow weapon swapping in Mythic Plus and rated PvP combat, because I'm pretty sure you're locked into your weapons, at least in retail you are on Battle for Azeroth. It won't get much use. It's more just like a fantasy thing for the warrior at this point if it's left like this, where yeah, you could throw a shield on, but you're not gonna fury tank, right? I mean, at that point you may as well just spec prot. Maybe you could fury tank. I feel like most of these require 2 weapons, so there's no way, right? So it's a little bit unfortunate. If they just counted you having a shield to use these, would it be the same? I don't think so. So the only way to enable these would be allowing weapon swapping. Spell reflection is back baseline. You get the added benefit of some magical damage reduction if there are no spells to reflect. So it is a nice little magic mitigation cooldown as well during phases of raids and dungeons where you want to reduce some damage on yourself. There's some legendaries to synergize it to assist your teammates as well. It's a great addition back to the baseline warrior kit, but it's nerfed comparatively to its PvP counterparts, where in the PvP talent version of this was 3 seconds of immunity basically to spells that were casted on you. This one, it lasts 3 seconds. It reflects all spells. I'm really thinking that any spell that was brought back baseline here, I'm curious if maybe if they're debating on not bringing it back. That's why they haven't removed the honor talent yet, or they just haven't gotten to the point where they're looking at the honor talents. But if an ability has come back baseline, I feel like it would really make sense for it to not also be an honor talent, because you get 2 spell reflects, and this one synergizes the same way with legendaries, which are really crazy, like extending its duration to 8 seconds. So I don't think that's going to go live like that. But getting it baseline in your kit is awesome. And I love all the utility coming back. So on top of that, like smooth feel of damage rotation, you've now got this extra layer of stuff that you can do. You probably don't need to in PvE. You can do if you're looking for the opportunities. And then in PvP, you're going to have that smooth damage gameplay on top of like, do I need to intervene some incoming attack? What can I spell reflect? There's a lot more going on, which is something that I would look for on Fury Warrior that was kind of lacking. When we jump back just over here into like the Fury Warrior only abilities, interestingly enough, they brought back single-minded Fury. I feel like this is the most notable one. So if you want to wear 2 one-handers, you can. To me, it seems like whichever one of these does more damage is what you're going to want to do. So while like is a niche thing, if you don't really care about performance and you liked wearing one-handers and attacking, you can do it. But if wearing 2 two-handers is going to be more DPS and performance matters to you, then I feel like you're never going to get to use single-minded. It would be really weird if Titan's Grip ended up being worse. So wearing 2 big weapons was worse than 2 small one-handers. I don't know if they'll make a situation where you would want 2 one-handers, because right now it's just your damage is increasing, you move faster. So slight movement speed, you already don't have a problem moving as Fury Warrior. So it seems like that's not that big of a benefit. Whereas this one doesn't even tell you. It just says you deal more damage, you get more strength, and you get more stamina. So I feel like this was brought back just for like novelty than anything else. Maybe it's while you're leveling, you switch from 2 one-handers to 2 two-handers or something. But it's more or less novelty. I feel like they wouldn't put it in a place where it actually ends up performing better to use 2 one-handers over 2 two-handers, which is kind of the problem for me. The talents actually received quite a bit of attention for Fury Warrior, so much so that I have to like go in between. So Endless Rage, which used to be here for sudden death, was always taken. So it seems like the ones that were always taken, they kind of moved around. So they replaced sudden death, which was pretty much always taken, with Endless Rage that was always taken. But then they altered Fresh Meat to be every time you attack a new target, or when Bloodthirst will always enrage you when you attack a new target. So, and you'll have more chances to trigger the enrage. I think the main purposes of moving sudden death, which was such a high value talent down here, and then altering Fresh Meat, was to try and give you some differences in playstyles. So when you're going pull to pull in a dungeon, getting to enrage right off the bat is really nice, especially if you're coupling it with anything like Onslaught to try and get some more damage out. These talents are still likely to just be whatever sims the best, and they usually will always be a best. Whereas sudden death would be better if you're just attacking one thing for a long period of time. These are like the main changes I see for the first row. If you're going pull to pull to pull to pull, fresh meat could be a lot of fun. Cutting things down could likely be really good in Mythic Plus on Fortified, potentially, or where it's not a lot of boss damage. Sudden death is probably still just really good baseline anyways. They took Furious Slash, which used to be here, which was just a rage generator, give you haste stacking up, and they kind of split it in two talents. They took the rage generating hit attack and made it onslaught, and then they took the haste stacking effect and moved it over here into its own talent. Then they moved Massacre down, which you never took because it didn't synergize it with the new version of Execute, to replace Inner Rage. In PvP, you're sad about losing Inner Rage. But now sudden death isn't on this row, so maybe they really just want you to take Massacre because it literally received 0 play in Battle for Azeroth. I've been fooling around with Onslaught, just trying to get an extra ability and using it with the Whirlwind buff to try and get an extra big hit. It hits decently hard. This is more of a consideration for PvP. This is all just going to come down to tuning. Frenzy probably has the highest skill cap of just trying to maintain this haste buff at its highest margin. Massacre still seems like a really weird one to take. Again, maybe on tyrannical bosses or raid bosses that last a really long time and you get in that 35% health range. It's just when Execute is a rage generator, it doesn't feel the same as Fear or Arms version as a spender, where you're getting big, beefy Executes that are buffed out with more rage you spend. It's kind of weird. You already have so many rage builders that you're spamming through. It's more or less just like an empowered version of them. So then maybe you'd switch over to Execute instead in the Execute phases. I'm curious to see how this talent roll ends up playing out with what they've decided to do with it. Moving down here, Carnage ended up getting deleted, so Rampage not going to be getting buffed too much here anymore. Bloodthirst generates 2 more rage or 4 more rage when it critically strikes, a little bit of extra rage generation. Frothing Berserker just got moved slightly to the left, and then Cruelty got put in here. While Enraged, Raging Blows deal 20% more damage and have a 30% chance to instantly reset its own cooldown. So if you like the end of a little bit of a Raging Blow build, you can still go for that. It's going to be nice just for whatever is it, Battle Trance? No, not Battle Trance. Yes, Battle Trance. So if you want to get your Raging Blow stacks in PvP and get your Battle Trance heal going, this would be likely where you want to go. I'm not 100% sold because these aren't really, like, other than that for PvP generating your heal, these are just going to be tuning, which ends up being the most throughput. Dragon's Roar was changed to crit 3 times as hard, so if you pair it up with Recklessness, 100% crit chance, Dragon's Roar could be really strong. At the moment in retail, it just does damage and it slows targets, so a 3 times crit modifier. I don't know why they really wanted to amp up Dragon's Roar when you were in PvE. You were pretty much taking it anyway, and then you took the utility of Bladestorm in PvP. But Dragon's Roar is going to be a little bit more of a roar. Reckless Abandon, I believe, also changed from Recklessness generating 100 rage and lasting 4 seconds longer to generating 20 more rage and greatly empowers your Raging Blow, Bloodthirst. So maybe just a little bit more single target damage. Maybe there'll be some synergies with these talents with the legendaries when we get to the legendary section part. But Siegebreaker was kind of always a go-to. This functions more or less as a Siegebreaker without an extra global cooldown because it's already built into your rotation. So perhaps that kind of quality of life gameplay will be enough. Some new honor talents. I kind of already spoke about one of them. So your Shattering Throw, reduce cooldown, get all the benefits that I talked about. Overwatch, you can intervene an ally and they'll gain Spell Reflect. So you can use intervene not only for physical attacks but magic. And that pretty much concludes what we've got available moving in game. Now, of course, we've got to look at Covenants, we've got to look at Legendaries, and we've got to look at Conduits because this is all of the new stuff basically coming into Fury Warrior. Give my opinion on it. Is it going to be fun? Is it going to be something that intrigues me to try? That's what I'm curious about. So Spirit Bastion, it's going to be the same spell for all warriors, but how is it going to work with Fury? Throw a spear at the target location, does a ton of damage. It likely scales with Recklessness to crit, does magic damage. It goes through armor, dealing 216% attack power over 4 seconds with a dot that generates rage. Enemies hit are tethered, so they'll be stuck, and you'll be able to max out your rotation. It has good synergy if you're playing with low mobility classes like Ret Paladins in PvP to hold a target down. You could couple this with their Avenging Wrath and get a ton of burst damage up. So if you're going to play in PvP with a lot of melee classes, or maybe even with ranged, because then you can hold them in the open, and then your spellcaster can freely rain damage down on them. In PvP or in PvE, like Mythic Plus, if there's trash monsters that when they get low health, they try and run away, or they try and pull a lever to engage a different mechanic, this could hold them in place, like Ursul's Vortex, a super powered Ursul's Vortex. So you can bring some extra utility to your group. It could be a good reason to bring you, depending on if they have many of those mechanics in the raid. Just functionally, generating rage and dealing a ton of damage is really good. So you can get more rampage windows. Seems like a good pick, and it seems fun to me as well. It seems like it could be a good pick and fun. So I really like this one. Hopefully they make the Steward's Vial usable in PvP. Otherwise, it'll be the only secondary signature ability that you won't be usable in rated PvP. If it also shares a cooldown with other flasks, then you would never use it because you'd lose out on a ton of damage. So hopefully they end up flagging this like a Hellstone instead of a flask moving forward. You get benefits of polymorph reductions and stun reductions, which Fury Warrior is known for dying in stuns in PvP, but in PvE, not really too big of a deal in that regard. Probably running Pelagos for just extra stats. Venthyr Warrior Covenant ability is Condemn. Learn Condemn, which replaces Execute. Condemn deals shadow damage, can be used on enemies who are above 80%, similar to the Reaping Flames kind of effect, applying it to Execute, and weakens the target, preventing some of the damage they would deal to you. It could be good for dueling in PvP, just 1v1s. You can use it at high health, make yourself more durable. In PvE, it's only single targets. Doesn't apply a dot like the AoE circle from the Kyrian. And Execute is kind of a generator. Rather than I would have to try this out and because you're only level 50 at the moment, I can't. I would really need to try this out to know, because this is, to me, it seems like it's more of a performance thing. Which one's going to end up performing better? You get a ton of crit modifiers through the soul binds on Venthyr. You get some snare reductions, but you don't care about snare reductions in PvP. You probably don't really care about them too much in PvE either. So you would strictly be getting this for the crit modifier soul binds and whatever Condemn ends up being in terms of its damage output. It's got a cool animation, but I'm a bit worried about it for Fury Warrior. It's a very low cooldown on Execute or Condemn, so it could end up working out, but it's something that I would like to try a little bit more. Of course, you still get Door of Shadows for extra mobility, but when you get to the legendaries, I don't know if you really care. You can get so much mobility from some of the stuff that's coming on the legendaries. For Necrolords, you get the Conqueror's Banner. You can put a banner down for 2 minutes, increasing your movement speed by 10% and causing your Raging Blow to grant you glory. Killing an enemy grants 2 glory. Activating this ability plants the banner in the ground, granting 20% maximum health, 50% attack speed, and 4 up to you and 4 allies. So again, more synergy with melee, a little bit less synergy with ranged than you would see with the Kyrian. But it's really good if you were building your party around maybe Wind Fury Totem with Enhancement Shaman, with that coming back in a melee DPS group, maybe with Demon Hunters or something along those lines. Defensively, it's just a raid cooldown, 20% more maximum health, so going Necrolord could get you a spot in a raid. You could couple this with Rallying Cry for a really big boost of health in a raid. Its damage output is likely to benefit you a lot, wielding 2 two-handed weapons, attacking faster, and generating rage. So it seems like it could be good and quite a bit of fun, but again, it's performance. If you're someone who just wants to be number 1 on the meter, I mean, this is just going to come down to simming which one sims out higher. You get a little bit of a shield for Fleshcraft. Again, you can bait interrupts with it in PvP because you'll get crowd control immunity while you're channeling it. So you can bait interrupts to stop the channel on the immunity, or you could immune crowd control skillfully with it. So it will have some uses there, but it's not as strong as it was before it got nerfed. And then for Night Fae, you get Ancient Aftershock. Unleash a wave of anima, dealing nature damage up to 5 enemies, knocking them down, so an AoE magic damage shockwave. Enemies struck take damage over time and transfer it to you as rage. So to me, this is very similar to the Kyrian, except it's guaranteed interrupts. So whereas the spear would require the monsters to run away and then get pulled in, or require the enemy to run away and pull in, you get the benefit immediately of being able to interrupt a ton of things. And Fury Warrior doesn't have an AoE stun or an AoE interrupt. So to me, this is like the best Mythic Plus go-to in terms of the way that its utility reads. You'd still generate extra rage as well to build up into rampages. You get the Cheat Death Soulbind. You get Soul Shape for mobility. I would think that you would want this for Mythic Plus, specifically Mythic Plus. Um, if you wanted to do Mythic Plus and PvP, then Kyrian looks really good. If you wanted to be utility in your raid, you could go Necrolord. And then if you wanted to just purely be selfish, the way that I'm imagining they're going to tune these, then Condemn is probably single target boss, maybe even PvP. Really good benefit to go Venthyr. In my mind, that's how I'm picturing the way that they'd want them to unfold, so that they all would have a place depending on your playstyle to pick. And that's where I see them fall at the moment. When we move here into legendaries, we've got specific legendaries. This is the one I was talking about, Leaper. Heroic Leap gains 2 additional charges. Now, Fury Warrior has some really weird synergies potentially that I want to try out. Where is it? It's like a reduced cool Barbarian. After 3 seconds, for 3 seconds after you cast Heroic Leap, you can cast it over and over, and its damage is higher. So I was actually wondering if you could create like a Leapfrog Warrior, where you're literally jumping on people like Mario. I don't know. It probably doesn't work. It's probably bad, but it sounded really funny. And then you could maybe make a Mario transmog, and you literally just try jumping on people in PvP. In PvE, you already pretty much have enough movement to deal with any situation when you're running 2 charges or Boundless Drive for an extra shorter Heroic Leap. Like, it seems a little bit unnecessary. In PvP, it's absolute overkill. I mean, you're going to be so annoying to people in PvP if you get this. It's like, is it going to be competitive at super high rating? Probably not, but if you want to be super annoying and just have some fun in Battlegrounds, it could be good go-to. Misshapen Mirror, Spell Reflect lasts 200% longer and applies to your party, so a legendary to get mass Spell Reflect, but it would share the same cooldown with Spell Reflect. Again, a lot of PvP utility in this. Also PvE, if you're running with a tank that isn't a warrior, you can Spell Reflect spells for them. This could be important depending on how they want to flag their spells and their bosses to actually interact with this spell. But there could be synergies of bringing a Fury Warrior with a tank that isn't a Prot Warrior, and maybe actually enabling a different tank in Mythic Plus than a Prot Warrior. I feel like we've seen it for so long. That would be nice. Seismic Reverberation. If Whirlwind hits 3 or more enemies, it hits an additional time. Just a nice little extra cleave. This benefits you as arms as well if you wanted a multi-spec or Prot as well for some extra damage. Signet of Tormented Kings, activating Blade Storm, Recklessness, or Avatar. You don't have Avatar. Randomly cast one of the other 2 abilities at a reduced effectiveness. Probably more value for Fury than it was for Arms, because Avatar isn't really as amazing as Recklessness is for generating rage. This also enables Blade Storm to be more selected if you wanted to be a Blade Storm warrior. And then you just be popping, having a chance to be popping between these 2. Seems like it could be fun. Fury Warrior specific legendaries. You got the Cadence of Fujita. Yep. Bloodthirst increases your haste by 2% for 5 seconds, stack it to 4 times. You could run that haste talent that I was looking at, the Frenzy, and maybe just have a full-on haste build of Fury Warrior where you're attacking really fast. Maybe synergize with the Necrolord banner and just have insane attack speed. Play with Wind Fury Totem. Fury Warrior, go fast. Deathmaker, your Rampage has a 25% chance to apply Siegebreaker. Wow, that's really good for single target. It also means you could drop the Siegebreaker talent, I would think. And then you could be running that new version with Reckless Abandon. There's a possibility there, so you can reduce some of like the global cooldowns that would be required, which are pretty cumbersome at the moment for Fury Warrior. To me, that legendary standing out a lot to me. Deathmaker. Reckless Defense, Rampage critical strikes reduce your recklessness and enrage regen, so you get some extra defense. Also resetting your rec a lot for big crit dragon roars. This could be a lot of fun. I see it being a lot of fun in Mythic Plus, where Dragon Roar gets to AoE. Maybe a little bit less so in PvP, whereas getting Siegebreaker more consistently to buff up your consistent damage is going to be a bigger benefit. Will of the Berserker. When Recklessness expires, your critical strike is increased by 5% for 5 seconds. Your Raging Blow will refresh the duration of this effect. Only 5 seconds for only 5%. I guess you could just maintain this. It's 5% crit at all times. This is definitely a void for PvP. In PvE, it's going to just be whatever sims higher. The way this stands out right now, I feel like this is going to be the best single target, potentially. And then this ends up being really good for AoE to just get the cooldown of Recklessness. Could also be good for single target. This one's standing out the most to me at the moment. But I kind of like Siegebreaker. I do miss the old version of Siegebreaker, and that's still kind of what Fury is missing without having Odin's Fury or Warlords of Draenor Siegebreaker, especially in PvP, is that one moment where you just smack somebody, you burst them down. Because the downside of Fury is you don't have mortal wounds, so you can't reduce healing. You don't really have that big execute phase like arms. So having that one big chunk attack is kind of what it's missing. More or less, it just attacks really fast and you heal yourself a lot. But I kind of miss that big chunk feel that it used to have, the chunky feel. Looking at the conduits, so these are basically gem sockets that you put into your covenant, and you can put in potency ones for damage, defense ones, I'm already forgetting the names of them, endurance ones for defense, finesse ones for utility. So for Fury Warrior specifically, we can get one of these. So Depths of Insanity, recklessness lasts 20% longer. Really like that. Extra time to crit. This scales up with time, so it'll last longer and longer and longer. Hack and Slash, Rampage has a chance to refund a charge of Raging Blow. Could have synergies with some of the new talents. Vicious Contempt, Bloodthirst deals 40% increased damage to enemies who are below 20% health. Sort of converts Bloodthirst into an Execute, and we're still waiting for the fourth one, unfortunately, at this time. And this is still subject to change, but to me, when you're planning your conduits, you want to think about them like months in advance. Like, maybe this one is better initially, right? 20% reduction on your recklessness is better initially. But if you scale this up high enough to where it's like a 50% chance to reduce Raging Blow, then this Hack and Slash one ends up becoming better. And I don't know if our simming lords will be able to sim these without them existing at max rank to determine that. So you're taking a pretty big gamble on ranking up these conduits that you're putting in. And then when you get to the max rank of them, the max rank is worse than the max rank of something else. This is the biggest downside of the expansion overall that I see, is that they want you to invest in almost a basically permanent decision for your character, and you don't know how well it's going to perform at the end, and you don't know if they're going to nerf it. And it's really annoying to change between them. So I don't think it's going to be received well. It's already the way that I just said it, I'm not receiving it well. But it is what it is if it stays that way, so take it into account. Covenant Warrior potencies, so these will apply to your specific Covenant abilities. Your Spear of Bastion's instant damage and rage generation are increased, so more of a personal benefit to it. That's what it was lacking compared to like some of the Night Fae ones, so that's nice. This one's going to be a lot of throughput. To me, it's the most fun ability. I really like it. I think if I go Warrior, I'm going Spear of Bastion, just because it looks the most fun. Condemns damage dealt and prevented are increased by more, up to 40%. You can get someone doing 40% in PvP. Man, that was just like mandatory. It's like a shield wall. You can only use it on people at above 80% health. It's such a short cooldown. You could just switch targets and put it up and make yourself more durable. Also, you get more damage to the target. I guess it requires... maybe it's not that great in PvP. In PvE, I think it's an attempt to make Condemn more competitive with AoE, because the AoE picks are likely better than it. So this Conduit sort of brings up the weakness that it has to try and even them out. Will it actually do it? Oh, math needs to figure that out, and the tuning phase isn't done yet. Veterans Repute. Brandishing the Conqueror's banner immediately grants you 5 glory, and while the banner is planted, you get more strength. So the downside of the banner was it was a lot less personal benefit. Or interrupt potential. So these conduits are kind of bringing up the weaknesses of the baseline Covenant's ability. Now you get more personal benefit with getting 12% strength. Definitely makes this a much more competitive option in terms of throughput. And depending on in PvP, if you intend to play with a lot of melee classes, you got Enhanced Shaman friends or Hunter friends that are going to play Survival. That's where this synergy is going to be. For this, or if you wanted to get a raid spot to increase the attack's power of 4 targets standing in it, seems like that's where you'd want to go with the Necrolords. And then for Night Fae, you get a shorter cooldown on the AoE stun, so it's not hitting its diminishing return cap. And because Fury Warrior doesn't have an AoE stun, like Leg Sweep or like Chaos Nova, this gives you that utility. It's probably the go-to for Mythic Plus, and this just makes it even better for that situation. Endurance Conduits are defense. Just double checking that I'm not reading the prot one. I feel like I'm not reading the prot one. Iron Maiden, we're looking for... None of these abilities are Fury. For Slam? Fury Warrior Slam has a 4% chance to refund a charge of shield block. I feel like that's meant to say Raging Blow, because I'm pretty sure unless I'm blind, you don't have Slam. Oh, you do have Slam. Okay. Interesting. On top of everything else that you've got. So your Slam will give you a chance of shield blocks. They do want you to be some type of... This is... I feel like this is a prot only Conduit. I don't see a time where you would ever want to take that as Fury. So I think just moving down to the next one is better. This one has a chance to enable a talent that you don't really take too much to be really good. So your Victory Rush heals 4% more over 8 seconds. Now you can run a talent that lets you use Victory Rush every 30 seconds, regardless of if you've killed somebody, for 30% of your health, and then you get a hot on top of it. That's a lot of healing. Like, that's a lot of healing. You do lose Stormbolt, but if you're just kind of solo playing the game, or maybe random battlegrounds, or you didn't need stuns, maybe we see Rogue Fury Warrior synergies now that rogues are getting poisons back for Mortal Strike effects. This could be an option to increase your own sustainability. It stands out to me at the moment, but only if you're going to be running the Impending Victory talent. Stalwart Guardian, the cooldown of Dab of the Sword is reduced. You don't care. The cooldown of Regeneration is reduced. So if you're running that talent, this one seems really good. If you weren't running it, then this seems like just the go-to. You just get Enrage Regen a little bit faster. Finesse Conduits, the last part of the little conduit sections for Shadowlands. Cacophonous Roar. Intimidating Shout can withstand 80% more damage. They really want your fear to be a stun? I mean, that's just like already immediately standing out to me like, wait. In PvP, that's going to be really like, you could Stormbolt somebody into a 6-second Intimidating Shout and kill them. I mean, that seems pretty nuts. In PvE, same thing. You've got AoE disruption now if this functions almost close to a stun. Whereas in Mythic Plus, it's going to break a little bit earlier because you got more targets hitting it, but you could get a lot of benefit from this. Otherwise, you just get Piercing Howl, a little bit shorter cooldown. It's just kind of meh. Maybe they need to free up a little bit of storage space here with this one. It's not really that great. Inspiring Presence, Rallying Cries, duration, and health granted are increased by 20%. Really good utility to get this. I could see this being really good. It's similar to kind of the Azerite trait. But then this one. So it turns your Intervene into the old version of Safeguard, where when you intervene someone, the damage they take is reduced by 10%. This is really good in PvP, a lot of fun. And then if you're really going to fish for it, it could have use in PvE as well. So I'm very excited about it for Fury Warrior. I think there's still a couple things they need to work out here, especially with like these 3 things coming back to Fury Warrior specifically. But overall, it's got that smooth gameplay that it's basically always had since it was changed in Legion dramatically. And now it's got that extra defensive utility for PvP, and if you want to be creative in PvE as well. Hopefully this 3x crit modifier Dragon's Roar ends up being that kind of big moment. That's what Fury Warrior's lacking without Odin's Fury or the Warlords of Drana or Siegebreaker. It's just, I hope it gets that one big burst moment that it's lacking. And other than that, it's basically getting a lot of depth on top of its already smooth gameplay. It's looking like a solid spec overall. Definitely don't underrate the Fury Warrior here. Moving into Shadowlands. So thank you very much for watching and sticking through the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this type of content. I'm going to be constructing a tier list where I'll be ranking the melee specializations, at the moment melee specializations, in terms of their fun and engagement and how long I can play them. I take into account competitive viability because you don't want to be so bad that you never get a group, because then you're not able to have any fun. So subscribe if you're interested in that type of content. Like the video if you liked it. Leave a comment down below if you think I'm a total idiot, missed something, forgot something, because the main purpose of this channel is to be a resource. So I would like the information to be as accurate as it possibly can be. And again, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.